We are drowned in an ocean of lies and misrepresentation.
Newspapers, TV channels, radio stations and social media is filled with fake news about Islam and Muslims. But you can change that reality, brothers and sisters. Whether it's the niqab and the halal meat ban in Europe, or the increasing rise of Islamophobia in the West, or the endless wars and occupation and oppression in the Muslim world, 5 Pillars have been at the forefront of bringing the truth to you. But at the same time, how many of our women folk, our elderly, our children have been attacked and we weren't even able to report it because of our limited resources? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, who will lend Allah a good loan so that He can increase it many times? Look at the views on the video, this video, and then think of the millions of Muslims who use social media. Why were you in the small percentage of people who are watching this video? It's because it was the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We need only 1,500 blessed people to contribute as little as £100 or $130. You will inshallah share in the reward of actively highlighting the suffering of the oppressed to Muslims around the world instead of just sharing an article or a video. Inshallah get the reward of seeing our Islamic values being defended by qualified Muslim journalists when you turn on the TV or listen in on the radio. My sincere request to you, brothers and sisters, is to be one of the 1,500 Muslims we need, and your reward will be with Allah for being of the blessed people who defended Islam and Muslims in the media while others chose to merely complain without any action. Click the button and donate now. And please remember to share this video so you can get extra reward for free. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers, sisters, friends, and I pray you are all well. I pray this live appeal reaches you all via your phones, via your iPads, via your laptop screens, via your TV screens in the best of health and iman, inshallah ta'ala, in these blessed and final nights of Ramadan, which we pray, one of which is Laylatul Qadr, a night which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran is better than 1,000 months. I say this because it is in these final nights of Ramadan, brothers and sisters, where we naturally, inevitably should be excelling, going above and beyond in our good deeds, whether it be our ibadat, whether it be giving us our sadaqah jariyah, in our recitation of the Quran, and of course begging Allah for His mercy and His forgiveness. Today is another Ramadan live appeal for 5 Pillars, and the spiel is the same. I know with different live appeals you always get a different opening, a different segment, a different introduction, but with us at 5 Pillars, the opening never changes. And that is because the situation that the community has found itself, whether it be in the UK or the West or the Muslim majority world, is unfortunately the same. Brothers and sisters, 5 Pillars is a unique project. It is a unique initiative which was launched in April 2013, 8 years ago, with the hope and the pure intention to defend Islam and Muslims in the media, at a time when the Muslim community as a whole has been facing for the best part of 20 years an industrial, global, multi-billion-dollar scale machinery, which is the mainstream media, in defaming, dehumanizing, demonizing Islam and Muslims. It is in this unfortunate reality that 5 Pillars found itself to be born, and we have found ourselves to go from strength to strength, first and foremost with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and of course with the continued support of the community. That doesn't mean that the support should stop. Rather, the support should increase more so in these final nights of Ramadan, which we pray and hope, as already mentioned, is Laylatul Qadr. Brothers and sisters, before I introduce today's topic and guest, I want to explain to you all this. Many of us pick up the newspapers, if you still pick up newspapers and read newspapers, or we go through our phone and our news feed, and we read something about Islam and Muslims on a daily basis. It's become a thing. It's just become a normalized habit. And of course it would be, because Islamophobia and anti-Muslim discrimination has become normalized and embedded in nearly every mainstream media outlet, whether they are right-leaning or left-leaning or center-left or center-right, global, international, regional. It's just become a thing. As a journalist who's been in the industry for over 10 years, and my colleague Rosh Muhammad Saleh, who's been in the industry for over 25 years, we can tell you that it has anti-Muslim discrimination and dehumanization and Islamophobia has never ever been so normalized in the history of the free press, or what is known as the free press, ever. Yesterday's theme of the live appeal was accountability in the da'wah, intra-Muslim accountability. And we want to continue that theme today, especially in the last 10 nights where many of us will be increasing in giving our sadaqah jariyah and increasingly wanting to give our zakat, because many of our zakat anniversary or deadline, we wait for it to be in the last 10 days, hoping to catch Laylatul Qadr. Given that, one of the most difficult aspects of the work of 5 pillars is to hold our own institutions to account. And we discussed yesterday that while it's all good and well and expected for 5 pillars to go after and to expose and to counter the Islamophobes, the white supremacists, the racists, the neocons, the neoliberals, the counter-extremism industry, the Zionists, and all the other non-Muslim entities and institutions that want to harm Islam and Muslims, we have to also keep our own house in order. Because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Imran that verily we have raised you, the Muslims, as the best nation from amongst mankind, He Azza wa Jal did not leave it there. He set a caveat. Why did He raise us as the best nation from amongst mankind? It's because we enjoin in good, forbid the evil, and we believe in Allah. It doesn't mean that we enjoin in good and forbid evil only with the non-Muslims. There is all an element, obviously, within an Islamic framework to hold our own institutions and figures to account. And it is a very difficult task. It's a difficult task because Muslim institutions and organizations and figures have their own audiences, have their own followership, have their own supporters. And in many cases, 5 pillars has put itself in harm's way when we've merely tried to present something to the public, to the ummah, which we have calculated, which we have balanced, would prevent a greater harm. After the consultation of scholars, after giving private nasiha and advice, that we've been left with no choice but to then hold Muslim institutions and figures to account. Brothers and sisters, before I introduce today's esteemed guest, I want to set out today's format, the format of the live appeal. We have set out a humble target of £500 in one-off donations. £500 in one-off donation, which alhamdulillah, we have smashed in every live appeal. And we have set another humble target of £50 in direct debits. Why have we set such a small target? The reason why we've set such a small target is because we understand that the last 13 to 14 months has been a very difficult one for millions of people around the world. People have lost their jobs, people have been made redundant, people have been furloughed, businesses have been crippled or annihilated, and people are financially struggling. And 5 pillars have also felt the pinch. We've seen a drop in donations. But nevertheless, we believe that there is khair in the ummah. There's khair in the ummah, and they will support and they will back the causes in the defense of Islam and Muslims. Allah tells us in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, and spend from what you have in good, and you will be repaid, and you will not be wronged. And you know, with different live appeals, different presenters and different organizations will have a whole list of hadith and Quranic verses. We could have done that as well. But I stick to 1 or 2 verses of the Quran and hadith because they really strike home. They really hit the message home. When Allah is telling us that the wealth that He has blessed us with, to spend from that wealth in good causes, in His causes, and that we'll be repaid in full and we will not be wronged. And that corroborates with the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, who said that giving sadaqah does not diminish your wealth. Brothers and sisters, giving sadaqah jariyah does not diminish your wealth. Spending in the path of Allah, in a cause and in initiatives in the aid of Islam and Muslims does not diminish your wealth. It is an investment in this life and the next. Because we know that giving sadaqah purifies our wealth. We know that giving sadaqah cleanses us of our sins. So brothers and sisters, tonight, please give generously, dig deeply, and support the only independently regulated Muslim news website in the English language in the Western world. The donation link has been pinned and has been posted on Facebook and YouTube. It is www.5pillaruk.com/live or www.5pillaruk.com/donate. The link will be above the screen once we introduce our guest, and there will be a ticker at the bottom of the screen which will have our bank details. If you're unable to make an online payment, an online donation or an online standing order, there will be a PayPal link for you to make a donation via PayPal. And of course, there'll be the phone line, +44 international dialing code 01234 311 311. Brothers and sisters, donate generously, dig deeply, comment, call me. Today's guest is a dear brother of mine. He's a brother, a companion, a friend, an advisor, someone whose counsel, not just I, but Five Pillars as an organization takes it very seriously. He is someone who is a pioneer, someone who plays an active and leading role and has been for many years in advising and overseeing the financial operations and direction of various Muslim organizations. He is a brother, hails from South London, and he requires no real introduction. And it is none other than my dear brother, Umer Suleman, the more well-known Umer Suleman from the Islamic Council of Europe. Umer, assalamu alaikum, my dear brother. If you're there, show us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah bless you, Dilly. Honestly, jazakumullah khair. What an intro, bro. What an intro. MashaAllah.
Firing intro, really. We should have
Yeah, bro, that's it, bro. It's almost South London, bro. But yeah, that's all that was missing. Alhamdulillah.
The real Don Umer Suleman.
Allah bless you, bro. You know, I'll tell you something, Dilly, bro. MashaAllah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I was listening to you talking about Five Pillars, and I thought, you know, I just don't understand why you need to even say all of that. By now, people should really understand the value that Five Pillars has brought home for the Muslim community. Wallahi, I don't say that lightly. It's you can say all of that, but you know, some things you don't need to be said. And people should know that whenever there is anything to do with the Muslim community, anything of significance, Five Pillars is always there, alhamdulillah. Either yourself opining on it or Russian. And not just that, not just within Five Pillars itself and through your own, I guess, your own media, but in the mainstream as well. That how many times when we were growing up, we would say, oh man, they've got another community spokesman to talk about Islam, and oh, why can't they get someone who, you know, who's at least eloquent or can at least discuss the Islamic issues properly. And when we have that now, alhamdulillah, you've taken that burden, and I know at personal cost, others won't know this, alhamdulillah, because of our relationship, I know at a personal cost, you know, and with lots of personal sacrifice that people don't know, you know, then it's for us to support you, really, Dilly, you and Roshan. Actually, subhanallah, you've lifted that burden from all of us, you know. May Allah bless you, really. Allah Azza wa Jal give you guys more barakah. We want to see, you know, a Five Pillars news station, 24 hours. We want to see it grow because of the work that you do, mashallah. Allahumma barik, man.
Jazakumullah khair, man, for that powerful opening segment. You know, when I was thinking back when we first met, our personal relationship was a bit of a fun because we were Facebook friends, but I always clocked your face. I thought, this brother seems so familiar, right? And he's got an issue with the fact that we got Z at the end of our name, because he kept mentioning it a few times back in the early days. Yeah. And then obviously I clocked you were a very good friend of my brother-in-law's, who's also hailing from South London. Look, Umar, sometimes you and me, we've had some uncomfortable conversations. Especially more so, I would say Five Pillars as an organization has matured over the years, and there's still a lot more to mature about. But no doubt in the earlier days, there were times when we spoke, just like Hamza Zorzi said yesterday, in the earlier days, there were certain conversations that took place with brothers who were advising us, who wanted the best for us. In the way we used to hold Muslim institutions and charities to account. I say this because you are someone who's very much involved, usually behind closed doors, in people seeking your counsel, seeking your guidance, seeking your direction, due to your expertise in this field. Bro, it's a difficult task. It's a difficult, and in all honesty, we would say humbly that for too long, right, the Muslim charity sector, who generally speaking overwhelmingly do fantastic work, may Allah accept it from them, much needed work, delivering much needed aid and funding and all sorts to the most destitute in the ummah. No one is taking that away from them. But what comes with that is that we've created an industry which is very corporate, one which mirrors mainstream business corporations and charities, and there's certain practices that are at best unethical Islamically and at worst outright haram, right? Without having to mention names, of organizations today. With our other two guests, we might start dropping bars and names.
Yeah.
I know you have a certain decorum about you. I'm not going to mention.
No problem at all.
So tell me, bro, what do we do? What is the process? What should be the process? Should there be a process of external accountability for Muslim charities?
All right. So I guess, Dilly, look, let me go back. My approach has always been, those of you who know me, I've been working like in the city for a number of years. I started my career out as an auditor, and I was kind of checking the accounts for corporate companies, making sure that they're, what they say is what they're actually doing, right? And then kind of taking that approach into the Islamic organizations that I've worked with. And then obviously I'm working very closely with the Islamic Council of Europe, and I'll come to some of the work that they're doing and why it's relevant here. And my approach has always been one of pragmatism. I'll be very straight up. I always believe, look, man, it's always important to be part of the conversation. It's important that, that you're there so at least people can listen to you. If you can make some sort, however small, an impact, it's great. And I've tried to do that in the early part of my career. I left my job in Ernst & Young to work for one of the Prince's Trust charities that was set up. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to be helping Muslims. And I'll be straight up. Every one of those organizations, every one of those kind of activities I was involved in, when I look back at it, I was fooling myself. I was, wallahi, and I'm admitting this openly for the first time, Dilly, bro. I was fooling myself in thinking that I was achieving some greater good for the Muslim community, because it was very much a part of, look, I'm with you and let's see how we can shape and direct. And I almost felt like the go-between. Okay. And when you get kicked in the teeth and you realize, actually, who are you representing? And there's a lot of things that come into it, to be very open with you. When you start talking about some of these terms like wala, when you start talking about mafsada, when you start talking about, benefit and harms, and you start asking yourself, and when we're talking about charities, who are you ultimately serving? Now, if the primary response are Muslims or people, then there's an issue. And this may sound counterintuitive. If your primary response is, we're serving the people, then actually I think there's something wrong. And this is what made me think, actually, we need to serve Allah Azza wa Jal and serve people in the way that Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to serve them. And so when you come onto charities now and saying, well, the way they've been behaving, actually, you know what? They may do some good. Wallahi, they do a lot of good. But that doesn't mean that they can't be held to account, because it's not their money. It's the money, it's the wealth of the ummah. And the wealth of the ummah is sacred. Well, I see this even when I work in Islamic finance and I hear people coming up with these brand new harebrained schemes, and I get so upset about it. How do you treat the wealth of your brother and sister so cheaply? How do you treat it so cheaply? So when charities are taking money, right? And first thing, this whole thing about going into a corporate style operation, at the end of the day, look, it takes two hands to clap. And I think people have been responding to that. We've become like, as people, a bit lame, where we don't, we don't give out unless we go out for a bit of whining and dining, right? So they need to entertain us first, and then we give money. So we've become lame on that side, but they have become a corporate beast. But okay, put that to one side. I can even, I can take that to some degree when it's sadaqah. But when it comes to zakat, how can you play with the laws of Allah Azza wa Jalla like that? And I was having this discussion with scholars, and we were saying, listen, zakat is from ibadah. Ibadah is from your worship. And to do an act of worship, you're told specifically how to do it, and you need evidence to do it. So when Allah Azza wa Jalla is very clear in the Quran, and when He gives the 8 categories, if I was to turn around and say to you, Dilly, let's do Jummah on a Saturday because I think that more people will come. Exactly. You have that look on your face. I'm waiting for certain organizations to perhaps come forward with it. Right? You'd laugh at me. If I say, listen, you know what, let's make Dhuhr only 2 rakat. Because it's quicker, people are working. You say, how can you play with the laws of Allah? Yeah, with zakat, suddenly, everything's fi sabilillah. Everything's mu'allaf al-qulub.
Yeah. Because I think it's important for our viewers and listeners, for those of you who perhaps have not understood the gravity and the importance of zakat as an act of ibadat. It's mentioned, I think, 82 or 83 times, nearly majority of the times followed by salah. Wa aqimus salah wa aqimus zakat. Yeah?
Wa zakat, yeah.
Zakat, yeah? It's needed together most of the time.
All together. Almost together.
So when you put it into that context, it's a serious thing to be messing about with. If you put it into a historical context, that the greatest man to walk this earth after our beloved Prophet ﷺ didn't differentiate between the salah and the zakah. That he waged wars against those who testified the shahada, prayed the salah, but didn't pay the zakah. When you think of it that seriously, you start wondering the madness that's going on in the sector at the moment. But I guess from a five pillars point of view is that when we've come along, because let's be absolutely brutally honest about it. Prior to 2013, Omar, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, my brother, I don't think that there was ever a media watchdog that ever really held the Muslim charity sector to account. Number two, the Muslim charity sector has become significantly larger and more financially fruitious over the last 10 years as well. So it's a difficult task for us. What advice would you give me and Five Pillars on top of what you've already given to us privately and continue to do so when it comes to dealing with this very awkward situation of holding Muslim charities to account when it comes to... Let's just put... Yeah, you're right. Let's put sadaqah to aside for a moment. Let's specifically talk about the issue of zakat. How do we, as a Muslim organization, a Muslim media outlet, go about holding the Muslim charity sector to account regarding this specific pillar of zakat?
Right. So now this is, I'm going to be open again, Dilly, if that's okay. I go first, just answer your question.
You can tell, man, because
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, bro.
You've told us.
I know, and that's it. We're going to be straight up.
Well, listen, it's important that brothers and sisters know that there's been times where you and others have said, look, TK, the basis of what you lot have done might be correct. The way you lot have gone about it, have you really exhausted everything? Have you really going to consult? You've had those conversations with me. Others
100%, Dilly. I think, mashallah, look, bro, like you're someone who shoots from the hip, as opposed to someone myself who exactly. That's right. Click, click, bang. Right. Someone who's a little bit more, I guess, reserved, and when moves need to be made, they get made. Yeah. Right. So 2013, I think the only one holding any of the charities to account was probably Eastern Eye or Snoop. Right. Other than that, no, there wasn't anyone. So look, man, the reality is, where do I think Five Pillars' role is in this? Look, you know, a couple of years ago, Five Pillars called out a significant charity that deals in the Zakat sector, and it was in Ramadan. And whilst what was happening with how the Zakat was being used really infuriated me, I felt at the time, being completely honest with you, Dilly, I felt, do you need to do it in Ramadan? You may impact fundraising.
Right, Roshan, cut Umar off. That's it. Take him off.
No, that's what I felt. That's what I felt. I thought, okay, look, I support what you're doing. Maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe hold fire till after Ramadan, because it may impact fundraising. As in terms of overall collection, I thought maybe people will feel, oh man, we can't trust any charities. But alhamdulillah, Allah Azza wa Jal blessed you, because at that time, I know you sought counsel from a number of scholars. And this is important. People won't know this. Before you make a decision, and I know because I've also been part of that process, you go through, and you don't just speak to scholars, you speak to people who are experts in a particular area. You will speak to activists. You do wide shura. And I remember when you did shura at the time, and, you know, you went ahead and you released, and even, I think it wasn't that you just released this article, you tried to engage with the charity, and you engaged with the charity as well. And then you released it. And then, subhanAllah, on the back of that, the charity made some significant changes.
Pretty much immediately.
Exactly. Now, I know, right, I came to know subsequently that they admitted that they only made those changes because of their pressure that was applied by Five Pillars. Otherwise, they wouldn't have, right? And the only reason they changed is because some of their donors refused to Pay them. They said, listen, there's this mess going on, sort it out, and then we'll come back and give you. And when the money was pulled, then they came back to the discussion table. Now, for me, alhamdulillah, that is enough. And our issue sometimes as a community, as individuals, is you shouldn't always try to see things through your own paradigm. And you've got to understand there's many different ways to skin a cat. And at times, you need dialogue, but other times, you need to be held to account, especially when you're in any sort of public sphere, when you have a public role, and when you're dealing with a public amana. You have to, when we don't have a framework or some sort of institution that can regulate us, then we need some form of regulation, and that happens through the work that yourself do, and perhaps others who will call out when people misfire. And that's the importance of 5 pillars. So that's why I say the role of 5 pillars is irreplaceable in this situation. How many conversations? I'll tell you something, bro. There's so many conversations that happen on WhatsApp groups that I'm a part of, on Facebook, or they'll talk about, okay, this charity and that charity, and they've been spending this much, and they've been spending that much, and it's a nice bit of hot air, and blah, 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 blah. It goes on in those WhatsApp groups, and everyone has, like, you know, bear emojis of bear crying faces and bear sad and bear gifts, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. And that's why when you have an organization like 5 Pillars, who has the reach, who has the clout, Allahumma barik, right, that then can hold them and ask the questions that need to be asked. No one's going to respond to me. If I was to take a Muslim organization that, say, for example, had 3 letters in their name, and I said to them, why are you Zakat eligible? Why are they going to respond to me? If uncle down the road sends an email or asks someone, they're not going to respond. But alhamdulillah, they know that if you ask that question, there's weight behind it. There's wazn, as we say, right, behind it. That's why it's important, bro. That's why it's important. That's why the work you do is unmatched.
Jazakumullah khair. Before we carry on with this conversation, brothers and sisters, look, that was just an opening for today's live appeal. We said yesterday, and we're going to, again, one of the consistent themes of today's live appeal is that we don't wake up in the morning with a hit list of charities. A lot of people think that. Wallahi, uqsum billah, on the final days of Ramadan, we have no joy to go after any Muslim institution, any Muslim scholar, any Muslim anything. We would love to be in a situation where the battle was with the open enemies of this religion and this community. We would love that. But the point of the matter is, do we 5 Pillars want to be in a position where we say, oh, okay, from the non-Muslims, you're all good and well fighting the good fight against us good folk. What about what's happening on your own doorstep? What about what's happening internally? So, you know, we've lost funding. We've lost advertising money. We too have lost subscriptions because we've accounted a particular charity that has a following, or have called out a scholar who's affiliated to a particular charity, or a masjid who's been getting up to some kind of interfaith shenanigans with pro-Israeli groups, whatever it may be. We have lost friends, right? But I hope that it is a testimony to our commitment and consistency that we're not too fussed about losing advertising revenue. In fact, one of the organizations that we're talking to, without mentioning their name, they were in fact one of our most earliest advertisers. They were in fact one of our most earliest advertisers, right? And I'll actually say this as well. There is no media outlet, forget about Muslims, there is no media outlet that once after they've exposed or addressed or accounted a particular organizational figure, then invites them to come write and have a go at us on our website. And then we boost that particular article with our own money. Do you understand, Umar?
Yeah,
we had this. Well, the one organization I have no skin off my back mentioning, we did this with Penny Appeal. Yeah, we clouded them, right, based on what's publicly accessible. 70+ % of their money was being spent on non-charitable causes. Public accessible information on the Charity Commission accounts. We reported it, and the CEO at the time, Abu Naeem, came onto 5 Pillars, wrote a long piece gunning us. We boosted it from our wealth. Who does that? No one does that. No one does that. You'd be fortunate to even get a comment or two from the mainstream if they went after you. You'd be fortunate. So the point I'm trying to make is, we have no joy in doing this job. That's no,
No, I know, 100%.
We have
100%,
no,
bro.
because there's also that risk. Because, you know, whenever we have this kind of these incidents with Muslim charities, the first thing that they hold over us is, because of what you've written, people are going to cancel their donations. That money's not going to reach the most needy. Because of you, or because of you guys, this donation is not going to reach these people, and that's it. And that affects us. Don't think it doesn't affect us. We do. We go to sleep thinking, Tika, okay, we've done this. Now imagine those who have cancelled their donation, that money is now not going to reach someone. But then we tell ourselves, well, that money is then going to go to someone or another organization that's actually worthy of it. Tika, do you understand? So, brothers and sisters, please, before we continue this conversation, the donation link is above my screen, 5pillarsurk.com/live. I've not had a phone call yet. Why is it no one calling me? The phone line was blowing the last couple of live appeals. Call me. Maybe you are loving this conversation so much. Well, call me. The donation link is above the screen. Our bank details below on the ticker. And yeah, dig deeply. Tonight could be Laylatul Qadr, a night better than 1,000 months. You give £1. If you catch the night, think of it as £1 times 1,000+ months, inshallah ta'ala. I know you're short for time. I know we've got you for about another 15 minutes before our other two esteemed guests.
Yes.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
Who one of which loves he only has a gun on the hip and only shoots on the hip.
Yeah.
The other question of he has a hip or not, yeah? Okay, so let's briefly talk about this issue of fi sabilillah, right?
Yep.
From my reading, from my limited reading, and from what we've learned from our teachers, for centuries, over a millennia, that tends to mean one area.
100%. 100%. Let's just say military expeditions.
Yeah. So given that reality, that socio-political reality doesn't exist, hasn't existed for the past 100 years, I feel that this concept has been bastardized. Straight up.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's not a swear word, it's a legitimate English word before anyone starts going mad. It's as if anything and everything is justified. Anything and everything is justified.
Yeah.
So why do you think that's happened?
Bro, to be honest, I think, look, there's a few different things when you will look into it. And I was saying this, look, the Islamic Council of Europe, we have been putting together, working on a Zakat policy for charities. Allah bless, I mean, Muslim Aid, I'm going to mention them. Muslim Aid, they had a lot of, like, you know, a lot of skeletons in their cupboard, the way they were behaving. But they're under new leadership now.
Let's talk about Muslim Aid quickly, very quickly. Muslim Aid was an organization which, again, during Ramadan, 5 Pillars had the unfortunate duty of obviously calling them out at the time of their Jahangir Malik, at the time of their CEO, where whistleblowers were coming to us and saying that there's no Zakat policy. No Zakat policy. Obviously now it's under the management of our dear brother Kashif Shabir. Bless him and preserve him. We know that great things are going to be coming from Muslim Aid, and he's working tirelessly to bring the trust back into the community with Muslim Aid. Carry on.
Exactly. And this is important. It's important to say that because he came in and he's taking a risk, and he engaged with ICE and some other scholars and some ustads to put together a policy. And he goes, look, do it properly. And so we sat there, and the mashayikh, like, you know, Sheikh Haytham, Hafidhullah, Sheikh Sajid, Sheikh Fuad, Sheikh Dr. Ali Ahmed, like, they've looked at this and went through all of the different categories and really stripped out anything. For example, how money from Zakat is spent. It can't be spent on marketing. How much you can take for administration. What's the form that you give in? When you give money to someone else, how do they spend it? How do you account for it? All the different categories. How do you make this category correct? You know, all of these went through it. And then, subhanAllah, after they finished the policy, it was said to a number of different charities, who wants to take up? Allahumma barik. Yeah, it was... Allahu Akbar. This is what I love. This is what I love, bro.
Now, Brother Yunus, the target today, £500 one-off donations, £50 standing order. With the permission of Allah, we've reached and surpassed that target in previous live appeals. Don't let us down this live appeal. The link is above my head. The details at the bottom of the ticker. I'm going to carry on, my brother.
Done, yeah. And so, subhanAllah, the number of charities, and this is the point, you see, they've said that they have policies, but they can't implement them. Because they know that when it comes to zakat, the Muslim community will give, and it allows them to have a source of funds which they know they're going to get. And so it's easier to kind of reuse that money that they've got for the way they need, right? So, mashallah. Did you have 25, yeah? MashaAllah. Achieve so much at such a young age.
You know when Bedfordian's on the live, customer? You know when
I can tell, bro. I can tell.
Love to them.
MashaAllah.
No, we don't accept zakat. We don't want to mess about that.
No, not in this format. When 5 pillars, their other format is available, then they'll fulfill a category, inshallah. So look, so this is the zakat now. So they've got this policy, and now it's time for charities to adopt it. I was on a webinar with the kind of founders of one of the oldest Muslim charities in the UK, and I'll say his name, Dr. Hani, with Sheikh Abu Isa and Imam, Imam Abdullah Hassan as well. And Dr. Hani said, he goes, look, the reality is he's seen it from when he started out the charity, how it's become almost a corporate beast. And because it's happened and it's kind of had steroids pumped into it, where you've had now all different people from different sectors come in, and they're like, okay, we need to pump up the charity. This is what we need to do. And people have been responding to it. It's taken a life of its own. The reality is it's taken a life of its own. And now, when they know they've got access to this money, the zakat, bro, wallahi, shaitan's come in now. How can you politicize? And you're saying it's fi sabilillah, in Allah's way, because it's going to come to your organization? Tell me what you've done that's fi sabilillah on the level that it's supposed to be.
The level that is widely and normatively understood.
Completely.
Yeah.
Well, you're giving zakat to people who are creating fitna in masajid that women aren't allowed to go in during COVID time. Like, come on. Is this what Allah's law has become to us? Right? And this is what gets me upset. And this is why 5 pillars, bro, you're right to call it out. You're right to call it out and pull it out, because it's not their wealth. It's not our wealth. This is what Allah Azza wa Jalla has mandated from us, that the wealth should be like this. And now you're coming with this new fiqh, right? You're coming up with this new fiqh as if the categories that are there, that something that was never understood historically.
Or very much recently. Just 100 years ago, 80 years ago, it was understood the way it was understood for 14 centuries.
Exactly. But I wish people were honest. This is why I wish people were honest. And I see it now because I see it from people, from professionals that I work with in the city, when they say, oh, no, our zakat belongs here, right? To somehow be more accepted. Like, okay, this takes a political with a small p, that somehow, we need to be seen to be doing things here. Is this what your zakat's for? It becomes what? You're giving your zakat to receive something back?
It's a madness, bro. It's a madness. Before we bring in our 2 new esteemed guests who will be joining us shortly, I know they want to catch both of us on screen together. It could be a historic moment for Muslim internet to find all 4 of us on the screen. Quickly, before I add them on, what have you personally done when you've been in those situations, engaging with Muslim charities and Muslim financial institutions, where you've seen something, you've clearly observed something that's not right? How have you personally dealt with that?
Me, bro, I call them out, honestly. I was in a situation once dealing with an Islamic finance institution, and a scholar was coming up with some sort of, he was allowing a transaction that was, for me, was pure riba. And I said, what are you doing? I said, why have you not asked this question? And then the mufti was like, yeah, but it can be done. I said, why aren't you asking the question? And then I asked the people that he was engaging with, I said, why are you even engaging in this? I call it out, and it should be called out. The same way, if I think that you're not doing something right, I'll call you out, bro. Wallahi, this is the way. And by that same thing, I expect you to call me out, bro. Because really, this is why I said at the beginning, who's our allegiance to? It's to Allah. And really, if you love someone, and this is the hadith of the Prophet, if you see a fault with your brother, you will tell him. The Muslim is a mirror of a Muslim. It's not, bro, like you said, there's no joy in it. There's no joy in it. But we've seen how, right, the laws have become and the rulings have become so relaxed. Our parents, who we sometimes say they're simple, well, they'd laugh at us the way we practice Islam today.
100%. The little that they know to the purest and the most.
Exactly.
Because I'll be honest with you.
They do. Us lot, we're like, yeah, but there's this opinion like that you can do this and you can do that, and it's all right. And Yeah, come on, man. They knew little, but they acted much.
100%.
We're the opposite.
100%. Right, brothers and sisters, before I introduce our two next guests, and before our dear brother Umer leaves us, I want to play a quick video from a podcast that me and Roshan did, discussing this specific matter and how these stories come about. Roshan, please play the video before we introduce our two guests.
Do you wake up in the morning with a hit list of people to go after?
No, I don't want to. But I get so many things in my inbox or on my WhatsApp, from often people working inside charities telling me this is going on, you must report it. Most of the time we don't report it. We only report the ones that we have to report because we know we're going to get grief for it. And we know it's going to be problematic legally, etc., etc. I must admit, from my Islam channel days, I did several trips around the world, Africa, Asia, with charities. I saw firsthand what I consider to be complete incompetence from Muslim charities, the wastage of donors' money. I found it extremely shocking. It's always something that I keep in my mind from my own direct personal experiences. But the reality is that we only cover a story when it's a genuine story, when we can back it up, when there's evidence, and whether it's in the public interest.
Blood Brothers Podcast.
MashaAllah.
Brothers and sisters, our next two guests are, again, dear brothers, dear friends of both mine and Umer's. The first is a veteran in the activist scene. Since 2008, he launched Sex and Relationship Education Islamic, SRE Islamic. He hails from East London. He's someone who is somewhat of a maestro when it comes to the activist and the Dawah circuit. That's our dear brother, Yusuf Patel. And the second brother, again, is another veteran in the activist scene. Again, another brother, another advisor, someone who's counseled, someone who said loves shooting from the hips, and that's actually something we're going to talk about. He's someone who is very well known in the London area, formerly with I Engage, formerly with Mend, and now just a mercenary in the Dawah scene.
Gun for hire.
Gun for hire. And that's Miah. Assalamu alaikum, Yusuf. Shiplu, what's going on?
Assalamu alaikum.
Shiplu, so what Muslim organization do we affiliate you with?
Well, where do I start, bro? Where do I start?
Actually, there's a list of so many.
Nah, I'm not here. I'm here to represent the average Joe, bro. Average Joe. Average Joe. No,
well, I don't really need a list of organizations. I'm going to play with you. Yusuf, how you doing, my brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. I'm good.
Well, you have to leave us soon, don't you?
Yeah, I do, man. But man, these legends.
I was going to disagree with some stuff Umer said, innit? But hey ho, if you gotta leave, you gotta leave, bro.
That's fine.
Yeah, what I'm going, isn't it, Ships? Yeah, thank you very much.
There's differences of opinion there, but can't,
Umer, before you go, my dear brother, give us, the viewers, the listeners, some words of inspiration and some words of advice when it comes to obviously holding each other to account, and of course the importance of supporting 5 pillars in these last nights, my dear brother.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was going to say this. Look, subhanAllah, the points that you made, and especially what Roshan was saying, you have no joy in doing what you're doing. And I know that personally may not feel like that for the people who are on the receiving end, but by Allah, I think they will appreciate it. We hope, inshallah, on Yawm al-Qiyamah, that they had someone who was a sincere advisor, that told them, that allowed them to correct themselves in this dunya, and we all need that. Wallahi, we all need that. We need people who are going to tell us the truth. That what they say, you know the difference between your true friends and those who are just your time pass fellows are the ones that advise you for what's good for you and not what's good for them. At the end of the day, it's easy to be nice and fluffy and get lots of revenue, income, and talk well and do all these fluffy stories. And I know that there's been personal sacrifice for you and Roshan on this. But really, the sincere advice, actually, people should take a step back and ask all of the people who maybe feel that you're gunning for them. Look, whether you like 5 pillars or not, whether they like you as an individual, whether they like Roshan as an individual, they have to admit that 5 pillars has influence in the Muslim community and increasingly in the mainstream media. Without a doubt, it does. And so, when you think about how do we when we give our sadaqah sincerely, and this is why I come back to this point, a lot of the time subconsciously, we often give money or we do things because we get some sort of return out of it. Either a pat on the back, or we know someone there and they'll think well of us because we've given them some money, right? Or we're giving money because it's going to our home country, as we do, or we give it because there is a cause and we get a photo opportunity. But a question to every single person, and especially the naysayers and perhaps the haters, as you may call them, if you're sincere in your love to Allah Azza wa Jal, and you give money for something that you know has an impact and is influential, then you can know within your heart that you've done it for Allah's sake, that you've truly done it for Allah's sake. And I say this to everyone who's listening. Well, honestly, Dilly, £500 is a pittance that people are giving, actually, that you've asked for. Because the work of 5 pillars, and I constantly say this to everyone, that you should treat your sadaqah, your charity, as you do with investments. You don't put it in one pot. You look at many different ways that are going to bring you success in the dunya and the hereafter. And without a shadow of a doubt, 5 pillars is one of those avenues in which you will find success in this world and the next. How? Because in this life, you're going to see that they're fighting your corner. If they think that 5 pillars is harsh when it comes to Muslim organizations, let them see how 5 pillars is when it comes to non-Muslim organizations. Wallahi, they don't know what's harsh. Right? Exactly.
Allah bless you for your time. Allah bless you and preserve you and keep us in your dua.
You too. Allah bless us and all of the people who are watching as well. Make sure they give, man. Let me know what the final count is, Dilly, yeah? All right. Jazakallah. Shiplu, Yusuf, salam, rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Guys, yeah?
Right, now the fun starts, isn't it? Now the madness starts, yeah? Before I kick off the second segment of today's live appeal, you heard what Brother Omar said. You know, very honored to have him on and those wise words. You have to appreciate these brothers, including Yusuf and Shiplu here. These are a network of friends who, in the early days of 5 pillars, I'll be brutally honest with you, were far more critical in the early days, where our friendship was in a very new stage. 5 pillars was not as mature as it was today, and we were less willing to take advice in our earlier days. So to hear those words from Omar, someone who has held us to account, continues to hold us to account, to hear those words from someone who's respected within that sector, it means a lot to us. So please, brothers and sisters, donate generously. 5pillarjuk.com/live. Because we've got 3 people on, a big massive link won't be on top of my head. So please, it's on the comments, it's on the bottom of the ticker. Donate generously. Yusuf, I'm going to bring you in, but before I bring you in, is the correct link to donate to SRE. Quickly, donate to SRE. I want to make sure the right one here.
So what I'm saying is actually, if you want to donate to the work that I'm doing, don't donate, but donate to a number of other organizations, including 5 pillars. So I would say 5 pillars, Hugs, Cage, and Prevent Watch. So if you like some of the work I do, please fund and give money to these organizations.
Okay, let's just pipe it down a bit. Yeah, you know,
too pious, Yusuf. Too pious. And that is too young.
Roshan, keep this comment on the screen. Yeah? Look, you've been doing SRE stuff, right? That kind of halal X-rated stuff for since 2008. Yeah. So, you know, the cheddar needs to come your way. In fact, SRE Islamic is the only organization that I've been going to say in this live, you have our permission to donate to them first and then maybe donate to us afterwards. Everyone else has to donate to us first and then to everyone else. The link's there. Roshan, keep it on screen for a little while and let's kick it off, inshallah. Shiplu, let me start with you, yeah? Shooting at the feet first. Elaborate on what that means when it comes to...
I don't know. You see, let me explain this. This is the best way to explain it.
Go on.
Once upon a time, I went to this conference, which was widely regarded back in the days, before Quilliam tarnished it.
Jimas, yeah?
Yeah, Jimas, yeah.
You don't have to mention that. I'll mention the name for you. Carry on.
Jimas. And there was this one sheikh, which I'm sure we all dearly love, Sheikh Abdullah Hakim Quick. He was narrating a story about a father who gave his daughter away in marriage. And it was all good. You know, they liked the groom and everything. But just before the nikah took place, the father took the guy to the side and beat him up. He beat him up. I'm not sure if it was in the face or the body, but he gave him quite a good few blows. And he said, look, I know you're a good guy, and I know you haven't done anything wrong, but this is just in case you do anything wrong in the future. This is what you're going to get. And so thus, Dili, the usul was born. Yeah, that sometimes, brothers and sisters, we just need to keep our public figures and organizations on their feet, because you can't let people get too comfortable. And this is the problem. We sometimes allow, and this might be just because our cultural background of giving a lot of respect. And it's good. I'm not saying don't go disrespecting people and ulama and organizations, but no one should be felt comfortable, especially in this age, to do as they please. They need to see sometimes what a public uproar looks like, and sometimes that's all it is. And you get a lot of reaction and notice from organizations and public figures when something like, when we do take it to even in 5 pillars and others, when they do, put the, light under them, just to keep them on their toes. And so that's what it is, bro. It's about, and I don't know if this is Islamically good or bad. I'm not a scholar, but I'm just saying it's healthy. It's healthy for everyone to be on their feet, even amongst us friends. We should never felt too comfortable. And this is what happens. As an example, even as friends, when we get too comfortable, sometimes shaitan comes and we say things that we shouldn't say because we're so friends and get comfortable. But no, if we are truly friends, we would hold each other, as Omar was saying, to account, including how we deal with each other, and the same principle with organizations as well. So that's what it is, Didi.
Okay, Yusuf, you're someone who I, at least outwardly, understand to have show a bit more forbearance. You show a bit more mercy to Muslim women.
I'm not unmerciful guy, man. Look, I smile a lot.
You're not merciful. I'm saying Yusuf shows more mercy. I'm not saying you're not merciful. I'm just saying he has his threshold to start letting shots off is far higher than yours. Would you agree to that then, Elise?
Look, I haven't fired a shot for years.
No, you instigate the shots and then
you haven't fired a shot for years, but the reverberations are felt to this day.
Yusuf, look, just today we were having a conversation about a particular Muslim organization who is taking Zakat under the justification of fi sabilillah. We won't mention the name. I really want to, but I won't. But and the work that they're doing for that specific Zakat eligible initiative, they actually do good work. They actually do good work. But does it constitute as fi sabilillah? And I've been in certain conversations with you, Yusuf, where you have encouraged me to show far more forbearance and tolerance and wait for things to really hit the fan before we go out. Whereas Shiplu over here, he'll get the Mr. Naga, and sometimes he's just doing this sometimes, yeah?
You act first, ask questions later.
Yusuf, what is that, my brother? So has there been a time where you think that 5 pillars has been unjust in the way we've called a Muslim organization out? Be honest. Be brutally honest.
I think if somebody were to look at 5 pillars from the outside, and I hear this a lot, people say, why didn't you go to them? Why didn't you speak to them? And they haven't even asked you, did you go to them? Did you speak to them? And I know for a fact that sometimes you can report something much later than the alleged crime, because you're trying to engage with the organization. And I think it is important. I think I see 5 pillars as almost like a nuclear option. Sometimes when sometimes the fear of being 5-pillared is greater than the being 5-pillared, and I think people use that as a verb now. And I'm waiting for that the Oxford English Dictionary, because I think really it is. I think if when you fire off an email to an organization, there is a natural fear, which is actually good, which is quite healthy. They need to know that there is some scrutiny, some accountability. And with regards to the Zakat issue, one of the perplexing issues is that why are these organizations so hell-bent on perverting a pillar of Islam, which is minuscule in comparison to sadaqah? Is it because they have no confidence in support based on sadaqah? Have they got no confidence in their track record, in their work, that they're relying upon zakah? Why can't they just put the case forward for the excellence of their work and ask the community to pay sadaqah for their work? It's a really perplexing matter. But I think with all of these issues, when you start messing with something as serious as zakah, it reverberates into future generations. What is the next generation going to take from that, and how is that going to snowball into other behaviors where people start to then play fast and loose with the other pillars of Islam? So I think those people who are doing that today are gonna look down upon those people in the future who do something similar to them or use the same basis to pervert aspect of Islam, and they'll look down upon them. But the reality is they started that avalanche. They pushed that first snowball, and they helped to create the situation where our identity is being being diluted. So I think really everybody should just really think about their actions from the.
I think you're very wrong, Yusuf. In your eyes, as your brother who's been here since 8 years, since the early days, have you ever felt? And it's fine, bro. Just say it as it is. I said, you guys are my brothers. Have you ever thought, on this particular instance, we feel you guys were a tad harsh? As in 5 pillars, you guys should have waited a bit more. In instance, have you ever felt that?
There are situations where I felt where I came to you and said, "Look, this is a bit harsh," and I think you explained some of the background, said, "This is what we've done. This is the process we went through," and I think if more people were aware of the process you go through before you publish a story, maybe there would be far fewer allegations about you being just like the Muslim Sun or the Muslim Daily Mail, as some people like to use that.
Well, let's not make no mistake. The Daily Mail and the Sun are the most read newspapers in the UK, and they win entire elections. So you can say what you want about them. They have that kind of power and influence. Shiplu, let me bring you in, bro. Do you remember when Islam the Mosque, in collaboration with Muslim Aid, did some interfaith initiative with a pro-Israeli group? Do you remember?
Yeah, I vaguely remember, yeah.
And then that's it. The Berettas came out, and then obviously we had to fire some shots, and then there was a clarification within 24 hours, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the point I'm trying to make is that had we not done that, right, there wouldn't have been any clarification, there wouldn't have been any retraction. But at the back of that, we have to 5 pillars has to hear a lot of lyric, and you guys as supporters, friends, aid supporters, whatever it may be, you guys have to hear it as well. So where is that fine line between private nasiha and then shooting at the feet?
Dilly, I think as someone who's actually reached out to you guys on some stories, I can really say that you guys, mashallah, you have your due diligence in place. You go through a very thorough process, too thorough for my liking, and honestly, because sometimes I'm thinking, guys, you're being too cautious here. You're being too cautious, and sometimes I think, don't worry about it. I know there's a lot of discussions here. Oh, the organization feel this way or that way. Who cares? Honestly. I mean, who cares? It's not like they're gonna go they complain to the Daily Mail and say, "Bro, you guys hurt our feelings." Yeah, it's because you guys are Muslims, yeah, and there is this understanding of Islamic brotherhood and so forth, that they come to you and say, "Oh, you should have done this and that." Who cares? Doesn't matter. They need to deal with the issue. And the problem I see is, as someone who works in comms and stakeholder engagement, is lots of these organizations have no understanding of what comms is or what good stakeholder engagement is. Why do I say that? Because if they had that in their place, they would have anticipated and they would have known what is to come and not act surprised. And you see that. You see public figures and organization act surprised and get hurt over things that they've done, and they for some reason they can't understand the backlash. If you can't understand the backlash,
let me ask you something then, just on that note, related note. You worked very closely for a good amount of years for a very prominent Muslim advocacy organization, right? And during your tenure, with this organization, even to the transition to a new name, a new brand. How did you feel when Muslims held this organization to account? How did it make you feel? Did you feel cliquish and loyal to your organization?
No, the thing is, me as a person, wherever I am, I'm probably the critic of that organization as well. So when we used to get heat, I would bring it up. I'll say, look, this is genuine issues to consider. You know, these are things that we need to think about. These are questions we need to answer. And I think that's what needs to happen. You know, organizations need to anticipate whatever public statement they make, whatever public act they do. They need to anticipate what are the various repercussion or reaction are likely to come from that, and what are the lines we're going to give in response to the various reactions that are likely to come. And it's clear that a lot of Muslim organizations just don't have the capacity to do that thinking or that work. So when they do get heat, they're scratching their head thinking, oh, why are people being so horrible to us? And it's almost childish. Honestly, it's childish. You know, or why are they picking on us? Like, grow a backbone, grow some thick skin. You're an organization. You're supposed to be leading Muslims. You're supposed to be representing Muslims. You know, if you get heat, you deal with it. It comes with the territory. It comes with the territory. And so that's why I say sometimes, Dilly, you guys just need to do your job. Don't think too much about what this organization can say, what that organization can say. Yeah, if you have capacity to be nice and send private messages, do so. But otherwise, if you don't have to, if you don't have time to do it, don't. Because the key thing is, organizations, it's on themselves to anticipate what you guys might think of them. Not just you. When I say you, I'm talking about the public, because you guys are an extension of the public. So it's on them to think, oh, how are they going to react, and anticipate that. Not wait for you to go to them and inbox them and say, oh, you should have private messaged me. That's on them.
Okay, so before I bring Yusuf in and maybe look at some comments online, I wanted to explain to the brothers and sisters about this process that Omar and Yusuf and Shiplu and others have alluded to. Back in the early days of 5 Pillars, 2013, 14, 15 was when we started actually introspectively looking at a particular Islamic method to hold Muslim institutions to account. I'm here and I'll admit to you that in 2013, 14, and maybe the beginning of 15, there wasn't much kind of awareness of how a Muslim organization like 5 Pillars should be holding a fellow Muslim organization to account. There is an ethical framework which we do have to follow. Recently, over the past 4 years, there are various scholars from various persuasions that we consult. Since 2019 or the end of 2018, there is a panel of scholars that we have. We choose not to publicize them, but we can name some of them here. Sheikh Yasser al-Hanafi, Sheikh Asrar Rashid, Sheikh Tokir Ishaq, Sheikh Suleman Ghani, Imam Shakil Beg. There's many others from different persuasions that we consult. Sheikh Haytham al-Haddad, Hafidhahullah, may Allah be pleased with all of them. We consult them, right? And obviously, sometimes there's not a consensus even amongst the scholars that we consult, right? Then there's the whole process of picking up the phone and speaking to some of these organizations. And wallahi, let me tell you something. When you pick up that phone in the early days, they don't take you seriously. They'll give you some waffle on the phone. I think that's it. And then it continues. And then we give them a final warning that it's going to go off now. Are you guys going to stop, retract, change? And that's when we come out. So there is a huge exhaustive process, brothers and sisters, that we follow. It is never something lands on our desk or in our inbox and we cover it straight away. That simply wouldn't be Islamic either. Yusuf, let me bring you in quickly before we take some comments in about 5 minutes. What's your views on whistleblowing in Muslim organizations? What's your views on internal staff members within charities, within Muslim institutions that come to 5 Pillars with stories, with leaks, with classified documents, because they have a genuine concern that the leadership of that respective organization advice is falling on deaf ears?
Yes, I think what you said before is quite important, that none of us have a loyalty to our group or our organization, but rather we have a loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and foremost. If an organization is involved in nefarious activities, in things which are which are questionable Islamically, then I think there's and they've tried to raise it, or they've seen others raise it and it's just been ignored. And I think there should be avenues by which these employees go through in order to shine the light on those situations. And actually, the reality is that, as everybody has said, that if I were to go to an organization or Shiplu or somebody else, they would probably just send us back a reply and they wouldn't really take it that seriously. But actually, it's all organizations are concerned about how they're viewed by the public, by their donors, by their audiences. So I think it's really important that there is some sort of self-correcting mechanism. Otherwise, it's the Wild West. We've seen some really strange things happening in the charity sector, and I think it's really, really important that there are organizations out there who are willing to shine a light on that, and actually even threaten to go public with things if things are not corrected. And I think, yeah, absolutely. The whistleblowers, it's almost a part of the action of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar. If you see an evil, you change it. It doesn't mean if you see an evil in your organization, you just ignore it. No, there's a responsibility that every Muslim has to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond to the situation and ensure that things are corrected.
Okay. Roshan, let's look at some comments. Do you have any decent comments? Let's pass through the salams and du'as because we've given the wa alaik to everyone. What organization do you advise I give zakat to? So I will let each one of us have a say in this. My personal position is that your zakat, your relatives who are eligible for it in the Muslim majority world have the greatest right. This is my view. I still believe that the most needy, the most destitute in the Muslim world deserves that. But there are organizations in the UK that I would recommend. There's Hugs. There's the specific work of Cage when it comes to prisoner release and prisoner advocacy. There is the New Muslim Support Network of IERA. And in terms of charities, the charities that I personally give to, there's one Ummah charity, One Nation, and Ummah Welfare Trust. That's me. Shiplu, who would you recommend?
Again, like you, bro, I give my zakat to those who are close to me, and because they have they have a right over me, and over that zakat. So that's primarily, if there is sufficient enough to give it to other organizations as well, then I normally also give it to Ummah Welfare Trust. I have historically given to Islamic Relief as well as other organizations. And one thing I would like to say is that sometimes some people might choose to give zakat or donations generally to organization that says 100% donation policy. The way I see it is, instead of, for me, it's more about impact. If I can see that an organization can create impact, even if they are utilizing 90% or 70% of my donations, then for me, that's better than someone taking 100% and not utilizing it to its full potential. So yeah, that's my take, bro.
Yusuf?
So I think the zakah is about really, I think the zakah was always intended to be to give to an individual, to their hand, as far as possible. And this idea of giving to organizations, the organization is just the representative. It's like it's a form of wakala. It's an organization that fulfills the responsibility on your behalf if you are not able to access that person. So I think firstly, we need to change this attitude of saying, which should we give it to an organization? Okay, the organization is the intermediary. It's not the recipient. But also, I think, if I know of people who are severely in debt in this country, I'll give it to them. If there's a family who need it, I'll give it to them who are eligible for zakah. But generally, I give my zakah to Hugs because I know that they support over 200 families across this country who are often overlooked even by their own family members. So their own family members will just sometimes shun them because of the situation that they're in. And I've seen firsthand that the amount of, so they generally give, they're not allowed to give the cash, but they give shopping vouchers, they give things that are of a monetary value to those families. They pay off debts on their behalf, and that sort of thing alleviates the difficulties that those families face, and families who are seen as absolutely, some people see them as scum. Some people see them as people who are not even befitting of us even considering for our monetary support. So I generally give to hugs.
Okay, so brothers and sisters, there was a kind of a near consensus between us three. So obviously, between me and Shiplu, the family who are eligible and have the most right, me and Yusuf both highly recommend hugs. So those are two recommendations that we have. The most important, biggest human rights organization, Ansar International, was forbidden today in Germany without any proof. Please invite the chairman of this organization. Inshallah ta'ala, we will reach out to this organization and try to have them on the Big Picture show or the Bangladesh podcast after Ramadan, inshallah. Oh, God. I'm sorry I can't help you, my G, but I promise you in the future I'll just stop the road and hit rock bottom. Please make dua. Shana's okay, respect my brother. May Allah keep you strong and steadfast. And make dua for your brother to have a long and virtuous life. Not just a long life, a long and virtuous life, inshallah.
Amen.
Why hasn't no one called me yet? Usually the phone's blowing. Why is no one called me yet? 01234 311 311. Brothers and sisters, before we continue with today's live appeal, please donate generously. www.5pillarsuk.com/live or /donate. The link has been pinned on YouTube and Facebook. Please give generously tonight. A month better than 1,000 a month, inshallah. Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Jabbar. Russian, rewind. Now Sheikh Jabbar, what's he saying? I like your work and Allah reward you guys 5 please. Ameen. May Allah bless you, Sheikh Abdul Jabbar. He's the Sheikh that has that massive beard, the long, straight beard. Why isn't 5 Pillars selling merch to raise funds? We will. At the moment, we're selling just Roshan's book at the moment, The Secrets of a Muslim Journalist, which you can find on Amazon. So please help us by buying that. But the Blood Brothers podcast will be launching merch after Ramadan, hoodies, keyrings, those freezer sticky things, headscarves, man bags. We'll be launching merch, inshallah.
Dilly.
Yeah.
I think. Sorry, go on. Carry on reading out the messages.
Lots of love for Kashmir. Love back to our brothers and sisters in occupied Kashmir. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate you and liberate you from the shackles of the oppressors.
Ameen.
Brother Dilly, it seems like Brother Shiplu is taking his gun from his hip and offering it to you for guns blazing. Actually, that's an interesting comment. Let me bring Yusuf in. Yusuf, do you remember there was a Shura meeting once, about a bit over a year ago, where there were various Muslim organizations, their heads and their representatives. And it seemed like everyone was taking a go at 5 Pillars whilst also arguing why it's needed. Do you remember that meeting?
Yeah. I think people were I think people try to sometimes distance themselves from 5 Pillars, but also weaponize it when it's necessary.
Thank you. So just on that issue, sometimes, and I'm not even talking about organizations that we are not known to have cordial relations with. These are organizations that many would argue, okay, these lot seem quite close, they seem kind of within the same spectrum kind of thing. That even those brothers whom I love dearly, I feel at times that when they need us to shake some feathers, when they need us to basically stick it on an organization, or when they suggest that a particular action would fulfill a wider good, whilst having a very healthy distance from us, sometimes we feel used and abused. Sometimes we feel like, not the cannon fodder, but we feel like the ones who put ourselves in harm's way. If it turns out good and there's positive change and impact, fantastic, we're with you. But if there's any kind of blowback, do you understand? So, do you think that's fair, bro?
Is that to Yusuf?
No, to both of you. Do you not think that's fair that when it suits certain Muslim organizations, they'll come to 5 Pillars to...
Yeah. It's not fair, Dilly, but you should expect it.
Didn't you say, Dilly, that sometimes some charities will come to you with the shenanigans of other charities?
Wallahi, it happened just last Ramadan. Just last Ramadan, wallahi, there were 2 major... Okay, so I'm not going to mention names, but 2 of the big 6. If you know who the big 6 are, 2 of the big 6, Their senior fundraising coordinator rang me, said this charity is doing live appeals. They're saying that they're going to do a matching double donations. They're lying. They're not even ready. They're not even licensed to do that. Yeah, we are. Another charity rang me up. You know, these guys, they're lying. They're not going to really ask them who their contacts are in Yemen. Ask them. It happens all the time. So,
but what I'd like to say, I'd say is that on another note is that when, like, obviously I do a lot of work around education, around SRE, around other issues, and whenever I've come to 5 Pillars to actually ask for help on something, they've always helped. And actually, to be honest, a lot of organizations have distanced themselves. If I go to a lot of organizations and say, can you help in this matter? They'll say, no, because there's too much heat on them. Yeah. But 5 Pillars, they will take on if I ask, can you do this week? Can you do this article? Can I just push this article through? They'll say, yeah, of course, whatever you need. So I think that's one of the things that that's one of the reasons why I think 5 Pillars is so needed in our community, because often they'll touch upon issues which the rest of the community will sometimes want to distance themselves from. And I think that's one of the things that I've always had high regard for the brothers at 5 Pillars for.
I'm going to bring you back on there. Shiplu, you wanted to say something, my brother. Sorry, I interrupted you whilst reading your comment. Go on.
I can't remember what I was going to say, but on that particular point, it's that Muslims need to, realize that at least we have, alhamdulillah, 5 Pillars who we can approach, whether it's Muslim organization or whether it's us as individuals, who we can approach and say, can you look into this? Or this is, taking place, give us a voice. If you weren't there, where would we go? We'd probably try to still go to the mainstream or even our local press office, as in the newspaper office, and we might not have much success. But at least there is this organization, 5 Pillars, where we can go to, and at least we know whether we agree with some of the reports they publish or not, or even whether we like Dilly or not, because obviously it's a bit of a Marmite. But if, regardless of that, we can at least know that this is a Muslim organization who will at least go through process and principles, and they have an Islamic ethos, and inshallah they will do the right thing. So that's there. So inshallah we hope to see more organization, Dilly, so that with a bit of competition, maybe an organization called 6th Pillar. That might be quite interesting. But yeah,
our friend Zulu would have something to say about the 6th Pillar. He'll say, just like how just like how these are mashing up fi sabilillah, you're making a mockery out of 6th Pillar here. What's going on? Someone's asked, how big is the team? So it began with just me and Russia. For about a year and a half, it began with just me and Russia. Now we have a full-time web developer. We have a full-time graphics designing team. We have cameraman and editors on monthly retainers. We have 8 freelancers in Turkey, Bangladesh, Pakistan, in other parts of Europe. We have a committed fundraiser who is also on a commission-based retainer. And so there's, in terms of full-time paid staff, there's about 7 of us. And we have, mashallah, tabarakallah, more than 22 consistent regular contributors who, from the goodness of their heart, contribute to the website, and when we're in a position to pay them, we have done so. Haven't seen Diddy represent Muslims on mainstream media for a while. What's the intention for mainstream encouraging currently? My dear brother George, mashallah, a supporter and a dear brother of ours from the very early days, we have no control really over who the mainstream invites. But what has happened for the last 2.5, 3 years, especially since the appointment of Sarah Khan, at the Commission for Countering Extremism, we know that there is a blacklist that's being circulated amongst producers in the mainstream media, where the likes of myself, Roshan, Mozzam Beg, us, Quraishi, and others from other Muslim organizations who appear to hold a principled stance when it comes to these issues no longer get regularly invited onto the media. This is something that was spearheaded, we believe, by the CCE and Sarah Khan and Quilliam. And the beauty is that Sarah Khan is no longer at this commission, but she's got some other $2 role for the government. And Quilliam have obviously finished. So we have no real control over that. But the good thing is that during the good old days, between 2015 to 2019, those 4 years, we were regularly invited. I had a regular monthly news review show on Sky News, their prime time newspaper review show. I was booked in for every month until after the third appearance, Quillian Foundation got in touch with Sky News and basically said, you've got an Islamist extremist commenting on sports and cricket. And I believe that that was one of the most, with respect, that was one of the most kind of great achievements that the Muslim community would have had. A practicing, devout, principled Muslim reviewing newspapers that hasn't got stories related to Islam and Muslims all the time. So as soon as they got a whiff of that, they got me cancelled. And in terms of mainstream media engagement, it's important, isn't it? We need confident, articulate Muslims on the mainstream media to empower the Ummah and give them confidence that people are there representing their views and their sentiments. So yeah, that's it. Bro, Yusuf Patel, what is your opinion of using polygamy to counter the LGBTQ movement? Now we're getting into the interesting stuff. Infiltrating our society and school. If two men can marry, then let's tell them that one man can marry 2 or 3 or 4 or have slave women. Or don't just end there, just complete the whole thing, innit? Now, only I'm joking. As in, like, contextually in today's time, I'm joking. Relax, yeah? So what do you think, Yusuf? Polygamy as a solution to counter LGBTQ normalization?
The way the society is going, if there's enough of, because this society is based on individual freedom. So if there's enough of a lobby pushing for this, then eventually society will say, okay, that's fine. You can do that. Maybe you can't legally marry all 4 because of the legal requirements, but you can marry one and then have relations with the other 3. The thing is, from my perspective, I think it's really important that on these types of issues, which I think the society is lost to. Society is lost to these issues. But I think what we need to do is actually really focus upon our community and our narrative about these issues, because I really think that our narrative about these issues internally is wrong, because it almost gives the impression to our young Muslims that these identities are fixed identities that cannot be changed, when they're just behaviors, they're inclinations that people have that they either act upon or don't act upon, or choose not to live by. But I think there's another number of things we can do in our community to shore up our own narratives about these issues that are based upon an Islamic behavior model rather than on the Western ideas around identity. And so I think I think that is more effective at the moment, and that's more needed in our community, because we can see in our community around these issues, especially because the Muslim community isn't speaking about these issues. Then we almost all of these haram relationships are being normalized within our younger generations, and because there's no alternative views being put forward by our community, then our young people, their tolerance level for relationships that are not allowed Islamically is being weakened, and you can see that very clearly. Around 10 years ago, when they used to do polls in the Muslim community around same-sex relationships, the Muslim community was very clear. Almost 100% would always say this is a sin, this is not acceptable. Now you find younger people, when you speak to them, there's a higher tolerance for relationships that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden. And so we see that this is something that we need to counter in our own community, because the rest of the society has accepted these relationships as being a part and parcel of living in a society which worships individual freedom over everything else.
Yusuf, Shiplu, let me bring you in. I'm going to try and tie the two things in. Shiplu, today's theme is accountability, holding the Muslim charity sector to account. Many of the Muslim charities have ulama, imams, people of knowledge associated with them, essentially giving them the shari'i stamp of approval to do what they're doing. And we also know that there are men of knowledge who have invested many years in learning the tradition, learning the sacred sciences, who can't take any kind of criticism. And when they have WhatsApp groups, they're moving like they've established the caliphate, and they're whipping out the hudud and removing people from WhatsApp groups just because they woke up from the wrong side of the bed, right? This is just an anecdotal example I've given here, by the way. But what's your views on those people of knowledge whom we know are the inheritors of the prophets? And by the way, when we say the inheritors of the prophets, we say that those ulama who follow the footpaths of the prophets are their inheritors. Let's just make that clear as well, yeah? Well, how do we address this issue that ulama and people with knowledge need to be more thick-skinned? Because sometimes it needs to be shot at their foot as well sometimes, no?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Or are their feet bulletproof that they should never...
No. I mean, there is going to be naturally, based on our interaction with certain scholars, there will be a natural level of reverence and respect, which won't be afforded to others because we don't have that history and so forth. But generally speaking, our imams are scholars, and I'm sure most, do have thick skin, but there might be some who don't. And as some brother mentioned as well, not in this program, elsewhere, it seems to be a character issue or a personality issue, and less about the knowledge they have. And it just so happens that some people are quite sensitive to criticism, and it could be even linked to some sort of ego. And again, it goes back to being almost detached from the community, where they're expecting some from the layman behavior, adab, knowledge, which only they have through the years of training. You can't expect that. Do you get it? I mean, as an example, the athar of Umar bin al-Khattab, when he was seen with two pieces of cloth, and this one man got up, said that I won't obey you, I won't listen to you until you explain how you got these two cloth. And then his son came and explained that, look, my father is a tall man and one piece won't cover him, so I gave him my one. And then Umar bin Khattab said, and I'm just paraphrasing here, he said basically, what would you do if you saw crookedness in me? He took out his sword and he said, I'll straighten you with this one. What did Umar bin Khattab say? Did he say, oh, you should have private messaged me, man? Why did you inbox me with your criticisms? He said, something along the lines of, may Allah bless, this ummah where, there are people like you to hold, people like me to account. And it's this expectations, he didn't have an expectation that this man, a random guy, should have the adab to address him as the Khalif. Or in our context of the question you've proposed is that, you should afford me the respect of me being a scholar. No, you have to deal with whoever comes to you. If they are ill-mannered, then that's who they are. You as a scholar, it's your job role, JD, to deal with him in the best way, irrespective of how he approaches you. So it's unfortunate sometimes that we have some of our learned public figures, especially public figures, who take they become too sensitive on some of the criticism, especially on Facebook and other places. But it should be expected. And this is the thing.
Are we to blame to have put them in the pedestal in the first place?
So I believe so, somewhat so, yes, somewhat so, yeah. So it's a culture. It needs to be a bit of a cultural change. And again, just linking back, it just reminded me of the question that I said. We've been talking a lot about organizations and shooting at their feet, but a lot of it is our blame as well. When it comes to especially zakat, I mean, how stingy do you need to be to keep asking everyone, oh, can I give you my zakat? Yeah. This is not your money. This is the right of others, right? Give something from yourself. If you want to support someone, the first thing shouldn't be, oh, can I give my zakat to you? No, how much of my sadaqah can I give to you? So it's an issue of us general Muslim as well, where we're trying to just, give our bare minimum and trying to see, how many organizations we can give this little £10 or £20 we have. It might be more, I'm sure it's more. But my point is, let's not be stingy, guys, guys, girls, men, women. Let's have a bit of generosity. And remember, the Prophet ﷺ said that sadaqah is al-burhan, is proof of your iman. Yeah. So this is an opportunity, especially with 5 pillars and others, like let's show our proof of iman by donating to organizations like 5 pillars, because if we, the whole theme of tonight, I believe transparency, accountability. I mean, who's going to do that? Who's going to do that for us? I mean, we can shout about it on social media. It does get attention, but who will amplify that for us? Yeah, and it's going to be people like Five Pillars. So inshallah, if we can, let's donate. Even if it's, I know Dilly wants higher figures, but even if it's lower figures, I'm sure he won't say no to that. Dilly, would you?
The way is we set low figures because first and foremost because we know the pandemic has affected people adversely, and secondly because we know, isn't it? This is a story that I always tell. I was once sitting there watching a live appeal on Channel S with my mum, and it was a Rohingya appeal. And my mum, may Allah bless her and preserve her, I mean, she was like, she goes, I want to give some money, yeah. And just like some on the spot research, I said, Mum, you know the work that I do for Five Pillars and all that. What if I told you how much of that £20 that you want to give would you give to the work of your son? She goes, I wouldn't give you a penny. Right? And I asked her why. I was, why is that? She goes, look, there's a starving woman there whose children have been killed by, they've left their home. I'm going to give them all my money, right? I was okay. I said, Mom, do you understand the work that I do? She goes, yeah. She goes, you're a journalist, you're a journalist, and you write stories about Muslims and stuff like that. Then also I explained to her the more kind of strategic element of our work, being a media platform for the believers at a time we were being attacked, being a voice for the Rohingya in holding the Mianese and the Buddhist elements to account, same with the Indians and the Palestinians and so forth. Then I asked her, I said, Mom, how much would you give now that I've explained this? She thought about it, she goes, I'll probably maybe give you £2. And Tikasi, that's fine. And that's fine. So we're not asking you, brothers and sisters, but you have £20 and that's all you've got to give in the month of Ramadan. We're not saying to give all that 20 to 5 pillars. We're not saying give half. We're not saying even give quarter. We're saying allocate something strategically, especially if you're planning on or seeing you and your family and future generations in the UK in years and decades to come. If you're someone who reads the media, complains about it, about the coverage of Islam and Muslims, and then you don't want to support 5 pillars, wallahi, there's a sense of non-Shari'i hypocrisy, right? There is, because you complain on the one hand about the coverage of Islam and Muslims, that we don't have a strong, amplified voice representing us and our sentiments and our values and that of our community, but then you won't give anything towards this cause, right? So please, brothers and sisters, donate generously, dig deep. It could be a little covered, last 10 nights. It could be a night better than 1,000 months. The Prophet ﷺ said that giving sadaqah does not diminish your wealth. You give a 5 or a 10 or a 1 today, it may decrease the numerical value of your bank account. But Allah, it's an investment in this life and the next. It truly is, right? Yusuf, on this element of people of knowledge and them being the kind of religious legitimacy or stamp of approval for organizations that go on to do what they do, right? And they too have a level of sensitivity, egos. The vast majority don't, but a significant minority do, right? There's this thirst and quench to be, of the powerhouse, to be on the table of power, to be in the corridors of power, to be seen as a leader, to be seen as a reference point by the non-Muslim, by the government, by the institution, and so forth. How have you personally overcome this issue when you've gone and approached Muslim institutions about SRE, the RSE bill, these very, very worrying issues pertaining to the education of our youth, and you've even been met with disinterest, hostility because of maybe some previous things that you've said or done or whatever, or thirdly, for it to be coupled with, let's say, prevent training or an affiliation of that institution with prevent. How have you personally overcome that? Okay, somebody said that the PayPal link is not working. You answered that one.
Yes, I think in terms of it's quite a strange one because I've had really mixed experiences. On the whole, alhamdulillah, I've had a lot of good experiences. A lot of the ulama been very supportive. I met this imam who moved to Scotland recently, and I spoke to him. And he said, "Oh, I've never spoken to you, but I remember I used to receive your stuff, and I made dua for you, and I've been really supportive of you. And whatever you need, I'm here for you." And so that's generally the response I get from the ulama. They realize the importance of speaking about these issues and the future of our generation. As for organizations, there are a lot of organizations, unfortunately, in our community that want an image where they are they never touch upon any issue which is vaguely controversial. I've been to so many organizations. I once went to one organization which I won't name. I went to their meetings of their leadership, and I spoke about a particular project I was doing around SRE, and they said, "Yeah, this is good." And then when they agreed everything, and then suddenly they completely changed at the last minute and didn't support it in the way that we agreed, and it was just exasperating. But it was because I realized that they just didn't want to come out openly and support something that showed so that they had a link to me. Yeah, somebody probably spoke to them, and I've had organizations who said, "Look, we support you in the background, but we can't be associated with you in public because the government doesn't like you." And we specifically said they don't like people like you, and they've named you. There's organizations that now I don't go to anymore because I know that it's just a waste of my time, because they don't have because they almost want to, they believe that if they were to deal with these controversial issues, their future relationship with the government, with a seat at the table, will be at risk if they were to engage with this. So, but what really gives me solace is the fact that the vast majority of Muslims in our community are very supportive of these types of issues. They can see they don't have any political baggage. They don't have anything which stops them from accepting and acknowledging that these issues are real issues that we have to deal with. And their support, alhamdulillah, has been fantastic all the way through whenever I've asked the community for their support. But unfortunately, yeah, there's organizations out there, unfortunately, that become that their whole objective becomes a self-defeating one, where their primary objective is their survival and their future political positioning with the government, which means that that they will not speak about certain issues, or they'll only speak about certain issues when it becomes okay to speak about that. For example, you think about the Muslims in East Turkestan. Yeah, years ago, nobody would speak about this issue. And then when people in the right wing started to talk about this because they wanted to attack China, yeah, lots of Muslim organizations started to say, yes, we support the Muslims of East Turkestan, as though they were waiting for permission from political actors to speak about issue of their Muslim brothers and sisters. And so this is really, all these organizations have got to rethink their whole objective. Who are they serving? Are they serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or are they serving others? And if they're serving others, then we don't really need them. Yeah, they won't achieve the success in this life or in the akhirah. Rather, their whole positioning will be self-defeating, and they will be forgotten by everybody, including on Yawm al-Qiyamah in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I really say is that most of the time I will not work with the big organizations. People keep saying, why don't you go to this organization? And I say, look, I've spoken to them over the last 10 years, and they have been completely unresponsive. So I don't want to follow them.
That's call of tonight.
That's one of the organizations, I think.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're through to the 5 Pillars Live, and you're speaking to your brother Dili Hussein. Who am I speaking to, and where are you calling from?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm calling from, literally just got off the train, but yeah, just arrived in Oxford, brother.
MashaAllah. What's your name, my brother?
Shahid Shaheen.
Shahid Shaheen. Allah bless you and preserve you. Were you traveling at the moment?
I just got off the train this year. I was traveling, brother, yes.
Okay.
I'm praying for all of you and Umer, and I don't know what to say, brother. The project you're doing, may Allah reward you in abundance.
Ameen. Jazakumullah khairan, my dear brother. Jazakumullah khairan.
And everybody who donates as well.
Ameen.
I'm just try and cut this long story short. Please forgive me if it doesn't make sense. I've been with a special brother this evening.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't mind me saying his name. His name is Shah Nawaz Qayyum.
Okay.
He's a special brother. He's the one that actually got me. Send me this on WhatsApp, your link, your live program.
Okay, alhamdulillah.
And then she brought tears to my eyes. I put it on. And he said, please, can you give this brother a call? It's a special brother I'm doing. And he said, make dua for the Ummah and for him and his family. And he's going through some hardships at the moment. But as we all are, and please, I'll be really grateful. I'll make a donation. I'll take the self-code and I'll set up something on a direct debit, that's okay. Towards the pipe,
My dear brother,
what I'd like to say is, he's the one that he asked me to please give you a call. He said, he's just very touched by your words. He said, Dilly brother, I love listening to him. Please, when you get a chance, give him a call. Ask him to make dua. And please, that's what I would ask him. May Allah guide us all. Give us all.
Ameen. My dear brother, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, preserve you, and all the Muslims who are facing difficulty and hardship. May Allah replace the difficulty and the hardship of the believers with ease and security and happiness in this life and the next. Ameen. And I mean that for every single Muslim who believes in Allah and His message on the final day. Ameen.
You touched my heart. You mentioned a little story about your mother. I'm from Bangladesh myself, but you said she's still, I think, was it the Rohingya? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, sure. What's the
Rohingya?
Yeah.
I hope may Allah grant your mother the best that you ever got to do. I mean, the family, along with the Rohingya. I've had this life, but I think of the Rohingya day and night. And to hear that story, I got, as soon as I went onto WhatsApp, he sent me the link to see. I said I'll try and get up the train and I'll give him a call. The first thing he said, you mentioned that story about your mother, how you want to donate to the family. May Allah reward your mother with
My dear brother, chin up, be strong. Last 10 days could be the night of power. It is encouraged from us, from the Quranic and the prophetic tradition, for the believers to be optimistic of Allah's victory, ease, and help and aid. So I think the best of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will relieve us of all hardship in this life and the next, inshallah.
This will be people struggling, our brothers and sisters, the Uyghurs, the Rohingya, the Palestinians, the Yemen, and brothers and sisters, may we all make dua for them. Please keep up with that.
Okay.
May we meet one day.
Inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our brother Shah Nawaz Qayyum with the best in this life and the next. Ameen. And remove all his difficulty and hardship. Ameen.
May Allah reward you, brother. Thank you so much for your time.
Brother. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Unexpected call. May Allah make it easy for all the brothers and sisters. Ships, I know it's a bit late now, considering we've got like 20 minutes or just a bit more of the pew, and you've got to think, where did he throw this spanner in the works from? Yeah, you know, there's also been stories of people of knowledge, students of knowledge, prominent activists who were once perceived as orthodox, mainstream, normative, and they start kind of wavering and showing signs of kind of becoming, dabbling in deformist kind of narratives, associations. And we always go back to the story of Osama Hassan, right? Where the Salafi community back then showed a relative amount of restraint, thinking not to push him too far, to keep him within the ranks, mainly to do with the respect of his father, Sheikh Suhaib Hassan, and before he just went full on Bulali, yeah? How do we, because this is another kind of story we have to deal with, and I've also had to consult you guys, at what point do we call someone out without the fear of calling them out going to fully make them flip to the other side?
You're presenting me as some sort of sheikh or shooting, bro. It's I don't know. I mean,
no, it's a conversation we've had that you can't.
Yeah.
No.
The thing is, what I find ajib, and it's not just one case. Whether it's Osama Hassan, whether it's Adam Dean, or other people, it's like us laymen. For some reason, our firasa just clicks on. With our limited knowledge, with our bad adab and akhlaq, where our firasa just locks on and realizes where this person is heading towards. But for some reason, the respected ulama and so forth, and it's probably because they have a lot of personal advantage and so forth, they fail to see this. And so therefore, there's a lot of times that goes by where people give these people opportunities to further propagate their views and so forth, until the point, it's too late. And then we're told, now let's challenge them. Before it's, let's not give them too much exposure, and then they get exposure anyway, and then it's, oh, we need to challenge them. So it's ajib. It's really I don't know how this happens all the time, and you often see it that the average Joes seem to get bang on to rights on those issues, and for some reason our seniors and activists as well don't see that. What do we do about it? Again, I think if we were to just preemptively shoot some friendly fires, hit and miss, if nothing bad can come out of it, at least that person knows that if they were to propagate things that are alien to Islam, that there will be people holding them to account, that there will be checks in place, and they won't have a free reign. So again, it does boil down to that culture, and this is the point I guess I'm trying to get at, is how, and this is on our ulama and as well as the seniors within our community, how do we cultivate a culture in our community where we are proactively holding people to account, and demanding transparency. So we have a lot of advice and trying to cultivate a culture of adab and so forth, which is needed, but it's not what's that word? It's not mutually exclusive, that you can't have adab as well as having the ability or the mentality to hold people to account. So it's on our elders and I guess as a community to cultivate a culture where we are okay with calling people out, and sometimes we might get it wrong, and it can happen. Sometimes we might not just know that there is a difference of opinion on this matter, and they have actually taken a legitimate difference of opinion, and we just shot them out anyway.
So as someone who used to frequent Jimmy's conference back in the day, if you could, let's just play out a kind of, I don't know what the opposite of hypothetical is. Let's say you could rewind time. And you could perhaps, it's an insane situation, but what kind of proactive measures would you have liked to have seen in what's the opposite of evolution? Regression. What would you have liked to have seen the Osama Hassan situation be handled? Do you think it was handled okay by the Salafi community? When he's
no, I don't. I think anyone who is connected to Osama Hassan and that sort of dawah did any benefit to them or to the ummah in the UK, certainly. I think what could have happened is literally people just calling him out. It doesn't have to. You don't have to become an enemy, and this is what I'm trying to get at. Dilly, if tomorrow I called you out and I said, Dilly, you're a waste man, because it doesn't mean we've severed our ties. Do you get it? Why can't we be in a situation where we can just call people out and that's it? It used to happen back in the days. Ulama used to heavily confront each other in writing, and they never used to write each other off like that. It was just part of a healthy community, and that's what we don't have. And again, if we had that, then at least I think the outcome would be slightly different. But obviously, qadar Allah, there's no matter what we've done, would have been in this situation. But if we were to have a similar situation, then we can, from the beginning, we can start calling people out and say that this is not. We see it sometimes now that people do back and forth. We see the Yaqeen Institute and others. There's a back and forth, intellectual back and forth. People got no time to read all of that stuff. Sometimes it used to be frank. It might be in a Twitter tweet. But those things need to happen. If it's happening on that intellectual level, it can happen on a lower level where the common person can relate to, and it should still be fine. Just because you're using longer words doesn't make it fine, and if you use a shorter word, it still should be fine.
So Yusuf, bringing you into a more kind of, let's talk about Majid Nawaz, and let's talk about his background was a bit more different to Osama Hassan, who had, who was the son of a scholar. The man wrote books. He translated books in English and so forth. Should Majid Nawaz and Quilliam have been engaged by the Muslim community very early on and outed and exposed and shunned? Or was the no platform policy that the Muslim community generally had for years was a good one?
Yeah, I think so. I think in terms of with these issues, it's like it's never a black and white issue with regards to whether you take somebody out or not. But rather, it's some people will say if you take this person out publicly, then that's giving them much more credibility than they deserve, and they'll justify it and say, "Look, let's just leave them to their own devices." But when somebody gets to become a danger for the community, then obviously these people need to be warned against. People need to be reminded about the danger these people are causing, and it's the issue of saying sometimes that you. Oh,
sorry, Yusuf, I will bring you back to that point. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're through to the 5 Pillars live appeal. You're speaking to your brother Dini Hussein. Who am I speaking to and where are you calling from?
Well, it's me, Wakas again from Stoke-on-Trent.
Wakas, how you doing, my brother? What's going on?
Alhamdulillah, too bad. Yeah, I watched the live stream, right?
Yeah.
Regarding Brother Yusuf Patel.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen, I think it was a podcast or an interview about Patel some time ago, something about SRE, but I'm not too familiar with what exactly the brother do, like, and how can we support him, like, with his work.
Okay, so I've just put. So if you look at the Facebook, are you watching on Facebook or are you watching on YouTube?
Oh, YouTube.
Okay, Tika, I'm just gonna put a donation link there now. I was regularly putting a donation link. I'll let Yusuf. Yeah, boom, there it is. So if you look at the screen now, that's the link that you can support. And you've been watching most of the live broadcasts, yeah?
Yeah.
And in most of the live appeals, I've always said to brothers, donate to 5 Pillars, then go and donate to Cage, Sapiens, Hugs, etc. I'm making the exception because wallahi, I deem this to be of greater importance than the work of 5 Pillars. I'm not saying this because my boy Yusuf's here, but this is the one organization I say, even if you don't make a donation to 5 Pillars, go and support SRE Islamic generously. Yusuf's been doing this work, one man solitary soldier since 2008. And I don't want to throw any more dirt on his face. I'll let Yusuf finish what he's saying and then very quickly explain what he does. Is that okay?
Inshallah, yeah, no problem.
Tika Papa, keep us in your doors, bro.
So what I was saying is that if people are presenting a danger to the community, and definitely Majid Nawaz, Quilliam was a great danger to the community. The things that they did, the work they unite against the Muslims, and I think so. When it gets to a situation where their position,
we're talking about how do we calling them out before they even get to that stage. That's what we're talking about. Before they.
I think apart from Shiplu, none of us have got the power of Firasa. But what I would say is
you can pay a subscription fee to my Firasa service.
You keep
that donation link's not going to get posted.
You keep your crystal ball to yourself. But what I'd say is, I think sometimes a lot of us could see when the trajectory that he was going down, people like him were going down at that stage, and it was very apparent that they were trying to almost reshape this deen in order to justify the lifestyle that they wanted to live. And not only were they doing that privately, but they were also doing that publicly in order to change what other Muslims thought about different aspects of this great deen. So in terms of at that stage, we all knew what was happening, but nobody probably knew exactly where it was heading and how big it would become, and how he would end up on LBC. How he would be advising the American government, the administration, or the UK government on extremism policies and things like that. But I think what is really important, what this shows, I think at a personal level, what it does show us all is that we have got to consistently ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remain upon the guidance, because none of us are immune from going astray. And it's a frightening thing where the Prophet mentioned that people who wake up who go to sleep at night and then wake up in the morning, and they'll not have the iman. They'll go to sleep with the iman, and by the morning it will go. So we live at a time where people can be won over by status, by money, by all sorts of different material bribes to change the path that we are upon. And so we've got to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our hearts firm consistently, and to ensure that we are not misguided, and we're not won over by the allure of this world. So yes, but on the I think that's it. Nobody can predict the future, but we can definitely. I think sometimes people like Shiplu, when they do shoot from the hip, I think that is sometimes quite healthy, and it does remind people that they're not immune from accountability, and sometimes it does make people think, because the best of us can do things that are incorrect, and sometimes we need somebody to give us a bit of friendly fire.
Let's take a quick example.
Go on then.
Mal, Mufti Abu Layth. His deformation has gone like cryptocurrency, like that, up there with Bitcoin. Now,
don't rip Bitcoin, yeah?
The thing is, yeah, this is a situation, and this is where the layperson comes in play. The ulama that he has photo opportunities with, many of them have no idea.
Let's mention something a minute. Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad, Timothy Winters, Sheikh Akram Nadwi, who has shared a platform with just 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
On the issue of caliphate and gym possession, if you remember, Yusuf. So that's even something where you can't necessarily even give a pass, right? Per se, as you would with, let's say, Numan Ali Khan or Sheikh Abdul Hakim Murad. Yes, carry on.
So and if they don't know what this person is propagating, because these are ulama, they've got their own things they're doing, they're busy. So it is the layman is the only people that can bring those issues to light, and so therefore there is that importance for people to propagate or not highlight these issues, whether it's Mal, whether it's Osama Hassan or others, so that people of knowledge take notice of those issues developing and can address it. The problem is we don't often see them being addressed.
Okay.
And I still don't know if many ulama actually have addressed even Osama Hassan or now Mal. So again, it's we can do our part as lay people, bring that to the forefront. But ulama need to also take it on themselves to actually, even if they don't, I don't see why they can't, but talk about the person directly, name them and so forth. But they also need to tackle the issues that are being propagated.
Yusuf, bringing the appeal to a close, since we're naming all these nefarious individuals, how do we deal with the likes of, let's say, Rashad Ali from the Institute of Strategic Sambakwas, yeah, who comes with the language of traditional scholarship, comes with the language of normative Islam, but I would say, is one of the leading pioneers of the deformist movement from behind closed doors. What advice would you have to, especially people of knowledge across the pond, who engage with him quite regularly and normally and not have a clue about who this guy is?
Yeah, I think sometimes people who have been involved in deformism remake themselves and act as though they are in the vanguard of carrying of Islam. And I think with these sort of people, I think we need to speak more to the people who they're in contact with and remind them who they are. For example, I remember when I've never mentioned this publicly, but I remember many years ago there was an article by Andrew Gilligan against me, which I complained about to the Telegraph, and said, you've got no basis upon this allegation, has no basis. What's your evidence? And he referred to Rashad Ali. Rashad Ali sent an email which was a complete and utter lie. Yeah, and I replied and said, this is a lie because it doesn't even conform up to the particular timeline that he claims. And they rejected that. Then it went to investigation, and they said, no, this is correct. We upheld this particular part of the complaint. But the fact that people like Andrew Gilligan, haters like Andrew Gilligan, are referring to people like him, to be the advisors around these issues speaks volumes. And so I think we need to remind people across the pond of the type of charlatan that these people are.
And we had the exact same thing with Adam Dean and our brother Abdullah Andalusi. Do you remember? A bit later, he basically fed. So, brothers and sisters, if any of you are watching this from across the pond, or anyone's watching, like, oh, why are they naming guys in the month of Ramadan? These are people who go and aid the open enemies of Islam and Muslims. Open. Go and feed them stories. Go and feed them blacklists. Go and feed them lies. For our brothers to then be witch hunted, lose their jobs, and they be seen as a witch hunted target. So this is why we name them, we shame them to prevent people becoming like that and to warn people of that. Roshan, can we just look at some comments before we close the appeal? Shiraz from Manchester, my brother Dili, tell brother Yusuf was an inspiration to drive SRE push in Manchester, made massive strides. Your help 5 pillars was priceless, alhamdulillah. My brother Shiraz from Manchester is a parent, he's a brother very active in the Manchester area. My brother Shiraz, support 5 pillars, support SRE, continue showing us support. And may Allah accept it from us all, and may Allah accept it from you as well, my brother.
Amen.
Brother Dilly on the show was a don against Osama Hassan. He needs to be called out. We need to support them so they can support our ulama to deal with the likes of those individuals. Yeah, I had to. I don't know if you guys remember Shiplu and Yusuf. There was some shura that was made before that interview, the night before, and I never wanted to name drop his dad. I never wanted to. But he just preemptively called me an extremist because I said, I don't think it's a valid reason to shorten your fast unless you really need to. And the guy just dropped it. So I just said, well, I know a great scholar. His name is Sheikh Suhaib Hassan. He's of my opinion. And he went mental when I said that. And then when I shared a platform with him on Sky again, 2-3 years later, before the interview, he goes, don't mention my dad here. I was like, all right, don't be labeling me anything either. The progressive secular Muslim movement is only going to grow in the UK and West. But Shiplu, you have an interesting view about that, don't you? You know when you talk about the potential Americanization of the UK, you always say to me, so long as the Salafis stay Salafi, the Deobandis stay Deobandis, the Brelvis stay the Brelvis, and the HT stay the HT, ain't nothing happening what's happening in America. Do you still hold that position?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I don't know what's over. I've never been over the pond, so I don't know what.
But you have said that in conversation.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, look, end of the day, whether it's progressive Muslims, I know whether Muslims become, secular or whatnot, there will always be core body of true Muslims everywhere. There will always be. So there's nothing to really fear. I mean, we have our challenges that this will bring, but there will always be, and you can recognize them. No one who's sincere will ever be misguided. No one's ever sincere will be misguided, and there will be that. And our job is to stick with the Jama'ah, and we will know whether it's that Jama'ah I'm talking about in the broad sense of all of the groups that you've mentioned or the movements you've mentioned. It might grow, but it is what it is. We've got what? How old are we now? We're reaching our age. We've got about 30 years or 40 years left. We die. We're finished. We just need to do our part in this time. And God knows what's going to happen to this country afterward. There's no point thinking about what's going to happen in 100 years. Yes, we do our part. We need to do. What does the nation? Wallahi, Bob Askar. This is the question, Akhi, I've been asking myself for 35 years or so. If you know, then tune in, give a call to Dilly and let us know.
Bob Asker's been tuning in onto all our live appeals. Question that is.
But yeah, so there is there's nothing to worry about, inshallah.
To be slapped with butter sandal. The thing is, if we did that brother Ifti, then we'd be fulfilling that label of violent extremism.
Ifti is my neighbor and childhood friend, mashallah. Thanks, Ifti, for tuning in.
No, it's not Ifti. I think 5 Pillar has a large Indo-Pak Bangla following. Why do you think 5 Pillar isn't popular as maybe in the Arab and African communities?
Let me answer this. Has Bob seen the Muslim demographic in the UK?
I was literally going to say that.
Exactly.
Bob, I think in the UK, because we are essentially a UK-based news organization, I think it's 65 or 68% of Muslims in the UK are from South Asia. So 6 or 7 out of 10 are from India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh. So naturally, the demographic following of 5 Pillars being UK-based is from that region. But that's not to say that we don't have a following in the Arab world. It's just not as prominent in comparison to South Asia. And just like how our food is more spicier, our siyasat is also spicier as well in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. Next comment, Roshan. Roshan falling asleep or something.
I was hoping Roshan would be on here.
Okay.
Yeah.
That means Roshan's on the comments. My dear brothers, I want to say a big jazakumullah khairan for having you both on and giving your time. I hope it's not the last time you guys are coming on. It is an open platform for you both, but it's been a great honor to have you on. And I don't say this much to you both and others that I'm truly grateful to have you guys and Five Pillars and Roshan to have you guys as our counselors, our watchmen, to hold us to account. Today we fired a few shots at a few people, but know that you guys, so that people know you guys fire shots at me and the work that we do and have done previously. And I pray to Allah that He blesses you and preserves you both. For the best of Islam and Muslims.
Jazakallah. And the team.
Brothers and sisters, friends, that was my dear brothers, friends and advisors to Five Pillars, Shiplu, Miah, Yusuf, Patel. Before them, our brother Umer, Suleman. And today's theme was holding Muslim charities and Muslim institutions to account, and by extension, people of knowledge to account, which is an uneasy and awkward part of our work, but an important one, because it falls under Amr bil Maruf wa Nahy al Munkar. It essentially falls under enjoining good and forbidding evil within the framework and the ethical framework of Islam. So brothers and sisters, there's been a lot of deep conversation today. I noticed that the numbers in terms of online weren't as high as yesterday. That could be because it's Wednesday. That could be because people, mashallah, are worshipping and not tuning into live appeals. But nevertheless, for those of you who have donated, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept it from you and make it weigh heavy on your scales on the Day of Judgment. Ameen. For those of you who are unable to donate but shared, like our brother Shah Nawaz Qayyum, may Allah make it easy for him. Ameen. The fact that he shared this appeal with another brother, the other brother called in, said he'd make a donation, and he was in tears about the state of the ummah. This is the kind of ajr I'm talking about when you share an appeal, when you share something, right? It is free sadaqah. It doesn't cost you anything to share, my brothers and sisters. For those of you who did share and forward to friends and family and contacts, may Allah accept it from you and make it weigh heavy on your scales on the Day of Judgment. Ameen. Brothers and sisters, it goes without saying that Five Pillars is an organization that doesn't just require your help. It's a must that you must help us. We're not saying that we're going to stop doing what we're doing, because we won't, because it's a fard kifaya. We see it as an obligation that someone from the ummah has to do, i.e. defending Islam and Muslims in the media and providing a platform for the community to air its views and to counter back to the many lies and misconceptions that's being propagated with a multi-billion industry. Someone has to do it. We'll do it. Money or no money, we'll do it. But funding allows us to do the job better. Output, quantity, quality, manpower, resources. This is what we need. We're a service-based organization. We don't promise you a food bank. We don't promise you to sponsor an orphan. We don't promise you to build a well. What we're promising you is that we are qualified and experienced Muslim journalists running a professional website. We've been trained in journalistic disciplines, and we will, with the permission of Allah, and so long as Allah gives us life and tawfiq, we will defend Islam and Muslims in the media, as well as hold our own institutions to account when they're caught misbehaving badly or misappropriating our funds, with the consultation of scholars and senior activists within the community. Brothers and sisters, we pick up the news, we read the news, and there's always something about Islam and Muslims that upsets us, that disheartens us, that makes us scared, that kind of makes us despondent. It doesn't have to be like that. If you feel like that, then how can you not support Five Pillars? How can you not? The link is just above my head. fivepillarsuk.com/live or /donate. The bank details are below. The PayPal details are below. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve the difficulty and the hardship of all the believers who are suffering in this world. Ameen. May Allah replace the difficulty and the hardship with ease and security. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroy the wicked plans and plots of those who want to harm His deen and the community of the believers. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give 5 pillars the tawfiq to continue doing this work and give others the tawfiq to do this work. Ameen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enrich the community and the ummah so they can support initiatives like 5 pillars. Ameen. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني. آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Muslims are constantly misrepresented in the media.
We cannot anymore have a situation where 1.6 billion Muslims are trying to murder the rest of the world.
Misinformation about our deen is spreading far and wide.
Their intolerance of freedom of conscience, their intolerance of apostates, their intolerance of freedom of expression and freedom of speech.
And Islamophobia is on the rise because of this.
I would stop. You would ban all Muslims. I would temporarily halt Muslim immigration to this country until we get a grip of the problem.
What about defending the honor of a Muslim woman when she's attacked on the streets? What about defending the honor of a Syrian child who is bullied when they go to their new school in Europe? What are you doing about it? Will you help the oppressed? Now just imagine for a moment, what if we had qualified and experienced journalists who are out there defending Islam and Muslims on the mainstream media, on the TV stations, in the newspapers, on radio and online, reaching millions of people, encountering these false narratives about our beautiful religion? What if this Muslim news agency was not just a small online blog, but regulated by an independent non-Muslim body? The reality is that such a Muslim media outlet, brothers and sisters, does exist. But here's the sad part. We've never had the funds that an agency like this really needs and deserves. We reach more than 500,000 people online a month and have appeared regularly on the mainstream media. Your donation will help qualified and experienced Muslim journalists at 5 Pillars to grow and expand our online news agency around the world. With your donation, brothers and sisters, we want to set up our own studios, cover global events as they break, and you will get the reward every time we defend the deen and the ummah on the news. Please do not be like those people who only donate to noble humanitarian causes but fail to see the strategic bigger picture. But what about donating towards something which our beloved Prophet ﷺ said is one of the greatest of struggles? To speak a word of truth at the face of tyranny and injustice. Please, please, please donate just £100 to this campaign. And secondly, please share this video, because sharing spreads awareness and it's free reward for you. Jazakumullahu khairan. May Allah bless you in this life and the next. Ameen.